Good morning or good afternoon or whatever time of day it is for you. Today I'm going to be doing a mini art challenge I'm really excited about because I like to suffer. My girlfriend got me this tiny sketchbook, which I have been obsessed with. I have no idea what to do with it, but it's just been hanging on my desk, staring at me every day. And you know what? Admittedly, I have been a little bit scared to touch it because it's a blank new sketchbook and I don't want to mess it up. I want it to be pretty, but I figured what's better than to really just fuck it up. I'm gonna get on Pinterest. I'm gonna find something to inspire me, which happened to be poppy flowers because my girlfriend loves poppy flowers. I want to clarify that I'm not going to be copying any of the artwork that I saw on Pinterest. I'm just using it as inspiration and as reference for poppy flowers, and I just taped my little book down and I got right into it. It was around here where I started to gain a little bit of confidence with this drawing. I realized I could get a lot more detail into it than I thought I could originally, and I started to have fun. A lot of fun, which quickly devolved into way too much fun. I went so hard with these circles that I don't really enjoy the way that it ended up looking. And you'll see later that I actually ended up trying to cover up some of these circles with the watercolors, which I think worked a little bit, and the final result I didn't mind. But now that I'm watching it back again, I actually don't know if I mind the circles. I don't know, what do you guys think? Okay, so now I'm gonna jump straight into watercolors. I should have planned something a little bit more here. Maybe I should have tested some colors on the paper. Maybe I should have tested to see if the paper could actually hold the watercolor. I didn't do any of that. I have my marker ready to go. I'm gonna do that after the watercolor. The reason I actually really wanted to use these watercolors is because it came with this tiny pencil that I thought was gonna have a tiny little tip, and it didn't. It was actually a very large tip, and I was super disappointed. Would have been cute, but now I'm just using my normal squeezy bottle watercolor brush. A little life tip that no one asked for: if you want to start drinking more water during the day, get yourself one of those athletic squeezy bottles that you can squirt the water out of. It'll up your water intake by like 20-fold immediately. Anyway, sorry, back to what I'm supposed to be talking about, which are these tiny little poppy flowers. I'm going in with this red paint. I did mute it quite a bit with some green. If you typically mute your colors with a brown or maybe a black or white, I would highly suggest using the complement of that color and you'll get a nice, warm, rich tone. But also don't listen to me because I don't know what I'm talking about. 90% of the colors I'm using in this are just an accident because my tray is super dirty and I go in with other colors on top of it and I'm like, oh hey, that kind of looks nice. Here I am going in with that green color that I mentioned earlier. And it's at this point where I really start getting Secret Garden energy, so I try to add in a few little dots in a few places and make it more mystical and magical. There's a question mark on the end of that statement because it still kind of feels mathy to me with all the circles and the lines. Fun fact, I had a whole real-time voiceover when I was doing this, but I had to delete all of it because it was so miserable to listen to all of the blank silence and ums and just monotone voice. Turns out when I'm making art, I cannot speak at all, like at all. Which makes sense because I'm the type of person that when I start making art, I'll just kind of zone into it and forget about the entire world around me. So I didn't remember that I was recording half of the time. I won't condemn any of you to hear it, but it was helpful for me to go back and listen to what my thoughts were as I was doing things. Like here I was just kind of trying to figure out a brighter red, and then I ended up making a color that I was obsessed with. It was still kind of blah at this point, but then I add in this orange and it just makes this like chef's kiss burnt orange color that definitely didn't really go with this drawing that I was doing, but I had to add it in anyway. Actually trying to add this in, regret hit pretty quickly. I realized how dark it was compared to everything else, and I thought that I ruined it forever. That didn't stop me, of course, because I continued to add it to every other flower in this drawing, and I didn't mind the outcome of it in the end. I have a little bit more foresight having finished this drawing and coming back to do this voiceover, so I know that it did end up giving it a lot of dimension that it didn't have before, and I think it added a lot to it. I feel like now you can actually see these poppy flowers coming off of the page, whereas before it was just kind of pressed into the background. Before I do the line work on this, it does remind me a little bit of like an old tapestry with the colors that I used. That might be an opinion that absolutely no one else shares, but I wanted to just put it out there. Here I am just going back and adding some darkness to the stems, because since I did add it to the petals, the stems got a little bit lost, but I think this fixed the problem. You're also about to watch editing me fight a battle to the death with this autofocus. I try and cut it out as much as possible when it fucks up, but I'm so sorry for what's left in here. I add a little bit more green here to the bottom to balance it out and also add to the contrast with the red. And then I decided to go back in with blue because, like I said, I don't know when to stop. I want a light blue, but I'm so sorry for making you watch me absolutely destroy this white pigment. I used to take this little set of watercolors with me to go urban sketching, so after a while it just kind of turned into a mess. I decided my greenery wasn't green enough, so I went back in and added these little brush strokes to mimic grass or leaves, you know, earthy stuff. And by now you'll figure out why I decided to not post tutorials to YouTube. I don't know what I'm doing. Truly, the only thing in my arsenal is the incessant need to make things. And so while this is the first video, I am not going to just be making tiny little artworks on this channel, mostly because I didn't enjoy it that much, but also because I want to do other stuff. I have an annoying need to try and justify the things that I do, so if I record myself making different types of art, then that counts as working, sort of. Which reminds me that this video is sponsored by me. Vesper Twine is my personal brand where I make lino prints and I sell them on t-shirts, prints, hoodies, tapestries, other things probably. If you think that sounds interesting, you can check it out at vespertwine.com, and I'll stop talking about it now. You've probably noticed that I finally made it to the line work part of this drawing, which means that I finally moved my camera up very, very close so you can see all of the tiny details. This is admittedly not a very fine tip micron pen and not my best move because I really struggled to make these lines as thin as I could. I used to have a ton of these pens, but I think some of them must have fallen into a crack somewhere and the little creature from Hilda came out and grabbed it because they're nowhere to be seen. But luckily, even though it is a little bit thick, these flowers actually start to look like flowers with them. I no longer have red blobs with circles around them, and now I have little poppy flowers. Get ready for example number 700 of me not knowing when to stop. I mean, it's too much. I finished drawing all of these little flowers and I'm really liking how it's looking, and then I go in with more. I really should not be allowed to have this much fun. I should have taken a photo of it before I did this, but I went in and I added circles around the poppy flowers like I did with the sketch. And I know what you're thinking, you didn't like how it looked on the sketch. You were gonna cover it up, and I did, kind of. And then I went back and I made it worse. And then I realized it was way too heavy on top with these circles and all the flowers being drawn in and nothing on the bottom, so I went in and I added these little lines and little dots all over. I do love the little dots. The lines I think are a little much. But honestly, if this were on a bigger scale and I was able to get more detail and make those lines a little bit thinner, I think all of these lines would look just fine and really cute. It's just the scale that they're at, or maybe it's the line weight that I had to use because of my giant micron pen, but it looks a little bit bulky. Of all of the things that I took too far, I think this one might be the worst. I went in with some yellow and added these little dots, which was really cute when they were big and bulbous like this, because that was never, you know, gonna stay that way. And I didn't anticipate that when I was putting them down. I was like, oh, this is cute, I'm just gonna keep going. I almost immediately smudged one of them, and then as soon as I did, I regretted all of my choices. But that was the last of the actual art I'm going to be doing on these little poppy flowers, so this is the final reveal. I had a lot of comments for myself while I was recording this about what I was actually doing with the art and what I would change, but truthfully, opening this little book and seeing these flowers in it has made me so happy since I finished. Plus, my girlfriend loves them, so that's all that matters.